Hey, what's up? This is Mark Lopes from Metal Church of Ross the Boss Band. Let us pray. And you're listening to Aftershocks TV. And don't forget to keep it fucking metal. Yeah.
All right, Aftershocks TV, Matt and Tom, we're back with you, and we've got a very familiar face up there in the corner right next to me. Of course, you know him as, talking about Aftershocks. He was the original guy who did it with me, of course.
That's right.
We're talking about the guy who's on every metal and rock podcast there is known to man. Mr. CHRIS Akin is joining us. What's up, Chris? How you doing, bro?
Hey, there's three of us here, and only two of us could say that we were on Aftershocks episode 1. It's been a while, my friend. How you been?
It has been, man. It's been a while. It's been great, man. You know, it's great seeing you on Aftershocks again. And obviously, you know, we've got we're getting ready to kick off 2024 here, and of course,
right.
you know, just as New Year's came upon us, of course, as we all knew, just a little over a year ago, on December the 30th of last year, our great friend and metal brother Bob Nalbandian obviously passed. So we're obviously, we here on the network, we always want to keep his legacy alive, and we're never going to stop talking about Bob, just how much he's contributed, obviously to metal over the years, and of course, being a part of the network as well.
Right.
Another thing too about Bob was, I was thinking about it. I was like, I've met both you guys through Bob.
Sure.
I mean, there was obviously nobody that I knew was better with connected people than Bob did. And it wasn't like he was connecting assholes with assholes. It wasn't your typical networking, LA networking type of thing.
Right.
Bob always hooked up good people with good people. So definitely owe Bob, always owe Bob a lot of credit for obviously, Aftershocks coming about, and just in general with the CMS TV and CMS and all that stuff. So, yeah, man, great seeing you, Chris. Obviously, as you know, Tom, he's the new co-host here on Aftershocks.
Finally, you get a good one.
Yes.
Just come back in about a month, Chris, after. We just hold fire on that. Yeah, not too sure yet.
You'll still be better than the first one he had, that's for sure.
I'm on probation. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Bob, Chris, I know recently, you did a really cool interview with Marty Friedman, and you talked a little bit about Bob, and like Marty said on there, man, he was saying, Bob was the real deal. Like you said, everyone knew people in the music business, or a lot of them are shady, and it's just you just have to expect that. But Bob was the one guy that really was just the real deal, genuine, did it for the love of music, and that was pretty much it. But yeah, it was a really great interview you had with Marty there, man. Yeah, I mean, how was Marty's? Obviously, we wouldn't have those great records without Marty, with the Megadeth records, without Bob introducing once again. Marty to the guys at Megadeth. And those guys, Chris, when we did the episode with Ellison last year with talking about Bob, he said that, that all the credit goes to Bob for that one.
Sure. Well, it's really amazing when you think about it. And I, we're coming up on the date, and it really bugs me when I don't see Bob get credit. Like, and I don't want to really hammer on anybody, but who would I be if it wasn't me to absolutely point at somebody? I was really disappointed in the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame induction.
You know what? Good point. Yeah.
I saw that, and I saw that they're sucking Eddie Trunk's dick.
Always.
And fair enough. And I'll even be fair on that. Eddie does have 40 years. He threw himself a great party to celebrate how great he is. Right. So clearly there must be something to that. But if Eddie Trunk had never been here, what bands can you say we wouldn't have gotten?
That's a good point, yeah.
If Bob Nalbandian had never been here, we never hear of Dave Mustaine, probably, other than he becomes the guy that got kicked out of the Beatles. He's Pete Best. He's not Megadeth, and truth be told, we might not have Metallica. We might not have Armored Saint for 40 years. We might have had them for 7 or 8, and then they would have packed it in. I don't think Bob, even a year later, even in passing, I don't think he's gotten near enough credit that he should have. I never thought he got enough credit, which is one of the reasons I was so thrilled to have him as a very close friend, just because just hearing those stories from somebody that was real, and not the same, not the stories that always end with, and then I did this. I mean, Bob was so genuine and so real, and he's sorely missed, man. This industry loses integrity by the day as people either fall off or pass away or sell out. And we lost one of the biggest ones, man. It bugs me every single day. I've told you this before, Matt. I go to my phone sometimes all the time, and I start pulling up Bob's phone number to throw him a text or throw him a call. And this is going to sound stupid, and I know it is, but I wish Metallica had not released an album this year. Because know that that's a Bob thing.
Yeah.
That is if Bob was alive in April, I think, when that record came out, damn well we'd have done a podcast, me, you, and Bob, and we would have gone track by track and argued for hours about this record in the best way possible. And for me, this Metallica record has been very hollow. And not from any fault of the band, for the fault of I can't live it with the guy that I've lived a lot of memories with. So, I miss Bob a ton, man. I mean, I could talk all day, but I'll let you guys have some. I really do miss Bob, though, a lot, and I'm glad we're bringing him up.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And then, Tom, I know, you with Bob, I mean, obviously, you're a big fan of the Skull Sessions, and that's kind of like a lot of people, that's how you met him, right? Just through the show, correct?
Well, it was actually initially with Richie. So I'm living in the US about 10 years, coming up on 10. I think Richie is like 12 or 13. Richie is the co-host on Focus on Metal. So watch that. It's a great podcast with Scott. And he's been on this show before. And his tribute to Bob is out there. But Richie was telling me 2 years before I moved over, hey, I'm listening to this great podcast by a guy called Bob Nalbandian, Skull Sessions, whatever. And I says, okay, well, I'll check it out. And I checked it out on my computer at home back in Ireland at the time. And then at the very end of every podcast, Bob used to say, hey, shoot me a note on skullsessions@gmail.com, whatever. So I just shot him a note one day, thought nothing of it, forgot all about it. Next morning, there was an email back that says, holy shit, he emailed me back. And that was kind of the start of just an online kind of chit-chat. Talking. It was all about music, obviously. There was no family shit and personal stuff, and that's all it was. And then this went on for years. I listened to the show, big fan of the show, whatever. And then when I ended up having the pleasure of meeting him in San Francisco about 4 years ago, I used to work for Waterford Crystal at the time. And I just was posted on Facebook, going to be in San Francisco. And then Bob shot me a note on Facebook, said, let's grab a beer. And I was going, Bob Nalbandian wants to meet me for a beer. It might as well have been James Hetfield. Like, I'm not even kidding. I text Richie, go, you're not going to fucking believe this. And I'm meeting Bob for a beer. So I was at this big fancy schmancy kind of Waterford event, and everyone's in shorts and ties and beautiful crystal glasses. And then Bob walks in with his beanie hat. And I just remember saying, over there, there was a bar like set up. I said, go over there, like I'll be done in 5 minutes or whatever. And I went over, gave him a big hug, and we went for dinner and hung out, had a couple of beers. And as we were walking towards the restaurant, Bob just started into, well, back in 1979, I say AC/DC with the final tour of Bon Scott. I was going, he's off. Here we go. And he just went off on a story. And I probably had heard the story before. I didn't care because I was hearing it in 3D with Bob. And, that was my first introduction to the guy ever, meeting him. And then, funny story, at the end of the night, then I ended up parking in this big, ginormous fuck-off shopping mall. And I couldn't remember where I parked my car because it's just huge. And he said, fuck it, I'll find it with you. So we just ended up walking in the car park for like 30 minutes or whatever, just chit-chatting and exchanging numbers. And then he said, hey, I must have you, Richie, on, and we'll talk about, and that was a podcast we did, Matt. We're kind of given the European, metal 80s and 90s conversation, whatever it was, but Doningtons and all that stuff. And we actually kept in touch ever since, right up just a couple of months before he died, which nobody knew he was sick, and you guys did. But Matt, when you text me, I know we get to that later, that, hey, Tom, sorry to tell you Bob died. I was going, what do you mean he fucking died? Like, what are you talking about? Because it was such a shock. I had no idea.
Yeah. No, it's funny too how you met him. I mean, I met him kind of similarly. It was really just a comment I made. He was doing the Skull Sessions through Roadrunner, Records website, and he did it. He did one of the ones with Monty Connor on it, and I was like, oh, Monty Connor. I interned at Roadrunner, in the late '90s, and yeah, he was just, I wanted to always be an A&R guy, and I wanted to be like the next, Monty Connor. That was like my thing, right? Everybody wanted to be the next Monty Connor who wanted to do A&R. And so I just made a comment like, hey, great, this is a great episode. Monty was like sort of, definitely a guy I look up to for, blah, 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 whatever it was, just a quick little thing. And then, like you said, no one usually writes back on these things. You know what I mean? You just say, oh, thanks, man, something like that. But he was like, oh, hey, man, what's up? That's great, dude.
Same
oh, you interned at Rotor, that's great. Blah, blah, I worked there, all this stuff. And the next thing, he asked me, hey, you know anyone who could do a MySpace page for the Skull Sessions? He's like, I'm not I'm not good with technology, blah, blah, blah. I said, dude, I could do that for you. It's not really that hard, man. And so I did a Skull Sessions page from a MySpace, and it just kind of started from there. He was living in Chico up here in Northern California. I was living in L.A. He eventually came down to L.A. to visit, and he moved eventually. And then we started going to shows and blah, blah, blah. So it's just so it wasn't like a big thing where you met him through somebody or, you got connected to someone. It was something so small as that, a comment on a post or whatever it is online. And next thing you know, and your buddies with Bob, and he was like that with a bunch of people. I mean, there was guys I know he told me about, I met this guy, basically the same kind of way. And fans just, like I said, there's no one more genuine. And Chris, I'm going to say something like you said, you were disappointed at a lot of people really not giving him credit. So I agree with you. I mean, I'm going to call out, for instance, like, I was really disappointed. I know me and you talked about this, Chris. When you think of Bob, what's the first band that people usually think of?
It's Armored Saint.
Armored Saint. And, yes, the guys were at the Celebration of Life, when I was out there too, and they were there. And, John Bush did a great, did a great speech. I think Gonzo got up there. He did a little bit something too. So did Phil. Those three guys got up there, but there was nothing online really. I mean, there was nothing, no tribute to him. I was just disappointed. I always think he deserved more, because he was so genuine, and because he asked for nothing of anybody. He didn't want any attention. He didn't want any money or nothing. I mean, at least you could have done. I mean, listen, even when me and Chris did the salute to Bob, we were doing interviews and stuff with these guys. I mean, they were great. The guys, Marty Frieden, speaking to him. I mean, he was just telling me all these things through email about how much Bob meant to him.
Sure.
And all these guys expressed really their love for Bob and stuff. But there was a bunch of guys. I don't even want to say their names and stuff. But there's a couple other guys too that I know Bob was really close, big names in metal that I reached out to and just got crickets. And it's disappointing.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, it is sad because it's real sad. And even putting up the tribute video. And some I did post to some of the old T Radio Vs and some of the old Skull Sessions on a page. I started with Bob, but barely anyone's watching. I was posting it on social media, and it's just not getting as much. And like I said, I'm going to still continue to do it, but I agree with you, Chris. I'm a little disappointed that he's not. People are instantly like, okay, he's gone. They forgot about him, but we're going to still talk about him.
Absolutely not. Yep. And dude, as far as those T Radio Vs go, put them on the CMS network.
Well, we're going to do that.
Just load them up and boom. Just throw them out there on first Thursday of every month or something. Just put it up.
Well, Bob always wanted, his own little thing. But if no one's going to watch it there, we're going to then put it up on CMS TV.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
we'll build him a tribute page right on the new site for him, because fuck everybody that doesn't support him. That's what I say. I'm going to support him. I'll still be supporting him 5 years from now, 10 years from now. That guy made a huge impact on my life, and I'm thankful for it. I mean, and not just, truthfully, almost none of it has to do with music, to be really, if you really want to be honest about it. I mean, dude, the CMS network came out of Bob's head, not mine. That all came from Bob saying to me, you gotta find a way to monetize this thing. Stop doing everything for free. He was like, stop doing everything for free and build something. You're too smart to not do this. And I listened to him and I blew him off. I ain't gonna lie. I blew him off for probably 3 good years. And then at one point, and Matt, you were even part of this. You probably remember this. We were all, Bob was doing Skull Sessions, I was doing CMS, and we were, at the end of each show, we were each promoting each other's shows. At the end of every single episode, we were like, hey, don't forget, check out the new Skull Sessions. He's got, this guy that nobody's ever heard of from 1982 or whatever. You know, I mean, whatever it was. And we were always promoting each other. And Bob said to me, he's like, why don't we just put something together where we're just all doing something? And then I talked to Matt, and then Matt wanted to do kind of an offshoot away from Skull Sessions a little bit. And that's how it all worked. But it was all because Bob was kind of, you know, the point man for all this stuff. And that's just one thing. And I mean, you know, we could talk musical stuff all day, but and this is going to sound morbid, but I don't care. I'm so appreciative that Bob Nalbandian, who I do consider one of my best friend people, considered me as such, that when he was going through the harshest stuff of his life that led to his death, that I was one of the very few that he was calling and texting and knew. And that was, it was made amazingly evident to me when I had to go and tell a couple people that he passed. You know, when I had to tell Ellefson, I told Ellefson, and Ellefson was the same reaction you had, Tommy. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, he's like, what do you mean he died? Died of what? Was he? And I remember Ellefson was like, was he in a car accident? Because he didn't even know he was sick. No one knew he was sick. I told Neely. Neely was the same way. Neely was like, what are you talking about? He thought it was a joke. He thought he was waiting for me to follow with the punchline. And there was
Chris, Neely didn't know about that?
No.
Get the fuck out of here.
There was probably about 5 people that knew.
Yeah, Bob,
Chris knew, and maybe 3 other people. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Bob was calling me a lot when he was driving home from his chemo sessions, and he had a long drive, so he knew that I was kind of home, and I was, you know, it was Bob. I was always willing. I knew he needed someone to talk to kind of keep awake and keep the wheels rolling under him as he drove home. So he would call me, and we would just shoot the shit about anything. It would be like, oh, man, Def Leppard in 1979, you know, whatever. It didn't matter. But, you know, we were just, it was just, he was calling me to talk about that stuff and just to talk, to get through some stuff. And, you know, at the end, when he got really sick near the end, maybe 2-3 weeks before, he had said, I don't care what you do. You don't tell anybody that I'm sick. No one. Yeah. And I honored that. I didn't tell a soul. The only person that I knew was Matt. And it's only because Matt said it to me. I didn't know.
He had told me, he's like, you know, it's all right. You could talk to it about Chris. Like, he knows. I said, okay. So me and Chris would talk. Yeah, we would talk about how Bob's doing and so forth. Because, you know, it was, you know, and it was the thing that, you know, I'm sure that sucked for Bob was, you know, there's obviously a lot. He was so, you know, he had such a lot of close friends, obviously, and he didn't tell everybody. And there's, of course, a lot of people that were very disappointed that they weren't in the loop and didn't know, you know, because it wasn't like all of a sudden now Bob's in the hospital and, you know, he's in there for months. So then people started knowing. It wasn't like that. So a lot of people were very, you know, almost, I wouldn't say angry, but they were disappointed. Like, how come he didn't tell me, you know? And it's like, look, Bob was the kind of guy, he didn't want you to worry about him. He knew he's like, I don't want to go on social media. He's like, he knew if this were to spread, he would get all this attention that he didn't, you know, he was just not a guy who sought attention, as we know, for anything, even if he did something good, you know. And so that's
I think that goes back to he never wanted anything in return. And you said it, Bob, exactly. Like with Trunk. And I'm not here to talk about Eddie Trunk and shit on him. He doesn't deserve to be on this segment. But just to your point about, he doesn't, because it's not about him. But, you know, his 40th anniversary, he had recently, you know, good for him. And I was listening to today's pod. I'm a Trunk fan. I get the me. But and he was talking today with Tom Werman, you know, talk with the new books out and whatever. And right at the end, then he said, you know, thanks everybody to coming along to my 40th anniversary, you know, whatever. He said, I've got so many texts. And they said it's the greatest concert, one of the greatest concerts I've ever seen. And I was going, fuck off, Eddie. You're like, come on. Right. But anyway, no, my point here about to come back to Bob is like, Bob would have never done that. First of all, he probably wouldn't wanted anything in the first place, but he never wanted anything in return. And we can talk about the music and his influence and where he went, but that's the big kind of differentiator, I think, talking about Trunk, who was up there and Bob is up there, and obviously Trunk went his direction. Trunk always wanted something back. Bob never wanted. Just buy Bob a beer and he's happy. Just buy him a beer and he's happy. Yeah. That's all he needed.
But you know, his family, like, they didn't realize how well respected and loved Bob was in the music world, you know. And between the Celebration of Life, which you know Toby put together, which was great, you know, Toby, what a great guy he is.
Yeah,
he put that thing together. They saw it and they couldn't, you know, they were overwhelmed. The sister, you know, let me know, like, I just can't believe what, you know, to us, he was just Bob. He was a great uncle. He was a great brother. He was just Bob.
Yeah.
And that's really with us. He was just Bob.
Is
too,
that with
know?
me too?
Exactly,
I mean, he was just somebody that I knew that also knew some really famous people. But that had nothing to do with my friendship with him at all. I didn't give a shit that he knew Metallica or Marty or whatever, because hell, I know those guys. You know, to me, that was no big deal. But because I am famous, no. Yeah, no, I miss him though, man. I really, really do miss him a lot. Yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, like I said, the Metallica record has been difficult to put my head around because it always makes me think about Bob. But so does everything else. I hate to say it. Yeah. You know, just today I was working and some tune from Raven came on. And I stopped working for a minute. I stopped working for a minute because it was like, well, here we are.
Yeah, he was.
You know, but it happens all the time because, you know, I'm a little bit older than, how old was Bob? 58. So I was a little bit younger. Yeah. And his references, like he was into metal before I was. Yeah. You know, I didn't really get into metal full time until probably when I went to the military in '87. I listened to some Bon Jovi or whatever. I wasn't like really all the way in yet. And Bob was kind of my conduit into that type of stuff, like the history of that, because I like you guys, I like to know the history. And I didn't know that history. I knew that Raven had an album and Johnny Z sold it to me when I was coming home from baseball camp and stuff. And I liked it, but I wasn't all of a sudden learning Raven either, you know? And once I got to know Bob, and Bob was so knowledgeable of, Raven, they were formed from this band and this guy came from here and this guy came from, you know, he knew everything. It was, you know, for somebody that loves music, just on that level alone, he was great.
Yeah.
But it's not only that, even from, obviously he was from, you know, LA, and, you know, he moved to San Francisco, but his knowledge of the new wave of British heavy metal and where all those bands were from, like in Tigers of Patang and like the Black Country, which is up in Birmingham, which is where Priest are from, and Sabbath and Robert Plant lives up there. And he knew even the geography of the country. He was so into the music. He was joining all the dots everywhere. But I'll tell you a quick story. Like Bob and I used to, you know, text from time to time, but it was never, hey Bob, what's going on with you? It was always, he'd always start out going, hey Leprechaun, what are you up to today? Or something like that. He was always breaking my balls about something. That's just the way it was. And I just said, fuck you, Bob, I'm busy, I'll text you later. So it was always, but that was him being affectionate with somebody that he could just have some banter with or whatever it was. And he just sent me on some, you know, some raunchy picture or something, said, what do you think of her, Tom, or whatever. Well, we just shoot the shit. But and I still have all those texts. And when he died, I sent a text, man. I don't think I ever told you this. I sent a text to his number knowing that he had passed. Sure. And I did not know where this text was going, but I just had to say something to just get it out there. Right. It just said, and I still have it. I can't remember what it was, but I said, hey, I don't know who's reading this. I know you don't know who I am. My name is Tom. Bob is a friend of mine and heartbroken. I just, whatever I said, I can't remember. So somebody read it. I got the read receipt, and I don't know who that was. Doesn't matter who it was. Matter of fact, they didn't want a response. I just had to say something and just get it out there into the universe. And I felt good that I did that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Yeah. Well, you know, I just want to bring this up. If anyone hasn't seen this yet, do yourself a favor, go check it out. The Headbanger, the tribute to Bob Nalbandian. You know, we you know, me and Chris will do some great interviews with some of these guys. You know, I mean, you know, one of the ones that stuck out to me was Brian Slagle, and like he said, you know, with Bob, he's like, you know what, he was the same guy that he first met him when they were, you know, 19, 20, whatever it was, that he was the day he died. He just never changed. He was the same genuine guy, just through it all. You know, and a great story out here too that Joel MacGyver, the author, talks about is Bob and the stripper story. Did you guys hear that one? When
no,
well,
I did not. No, I got to listen back on that.
You got to watch back on that. Yeah, it's a pretty funny story. You know, just knowing
Joel
Bob.
is great.
And
Joel
yeah,
is a great interview.
it was. Yeah. So everyone should go check that out. It's on the YouTube channel, The Headbanger, Bob Nalbandian channel. Please check it out. Like I said, this is just one of a kind individual, music or not music, just as a person, as we all say. Bob was definitely, just a one of a kind guy, for sure. But yeah,
amen,
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So great. So yeah, Chris, what we got you on. Obviously, I know there's some really cool news coming up for the new year for the CMS network. So why don't you go ahead and fill everyone in?
Well, the cat's already out of the bag, isn't it? You've finally got a good co-host for Aftershocks.
Well, that's for sure. Exactly.
It only took 2 or 3 years, but it's done. Finally, someone worthy of that, sir.
Yes, filling Chris's spot, exactly.
That's right. Not my spot.
Oh, your old spot, I should say.
My old spot. Yeah. Lord knows, I was so devastated when I got kicked off of Aftershocks. I had to form 2 more shows.
Well, CHRIS Akin Presents is quality. I like that.
Thank you.
And Eric, you and Eric you're a good team. Good team.
Yeah, it's something different. It's definitely different than the fuck you attitude that I throw at the CMS. I try to be a little less abrasive, I guess,
But you're very protective of Eric because he can't say shit sometimes. You go, I don't want an answer, and he just sits there and says, I can't do it. So I get it's funny though.
If you saw and heard the stories that I'm not allowed to tell, because he's in a professional band,
yeah,
there's a lot of that goes around. I'll just leave that alone, but that does happen, and it's weird. It definitely is weird because after doing the CMS where I don't have to give any fucks to go into this to where it's like, well, I can't say anything about the guy from Autograph today. It's like, well, okay.
So just as well because nobody cares about Autograph.
That's right.
Yeah, right?
I end up with a lot of notes that end up being redone on CMS. That's for sure. I don't bring them up. I'll have the idea on CHRIS Akin Presents, and then I just write it down, and then, Neely, you're not going to believe what this fucking guy from Autograph did, It does work its way that way, but no, the big news is, and Matt is well aware of this, because really, for anybody that's followed along, how long has it been, Matt? 3 years?
4 years.
4 years?
Networks, 4 years, yeah.
For the 4 years of the network, it's been myself and Matt. It's me putting it together, and me and Matt have kind of put the shows together and helped promote it and done the legwork to build it. And it's been great. The site does really well. We've built everything under the sun into it: radio, TV, video on demand, shows. It's the full. It is a one-stop hub for metal, but it got more and more bloated. It just did, because I'm a tech first and foremost. And as a tech, I was telling Matt this earlier, as a tech, I see a new idea. I'm like, I got to put that in the CMS PN. And then next thing I know, I got 4,000 things going on the web page. And it started crashing constantly. The web page just started having tons of problems. And I've been trying to limp along to fix it because it had so many pages to it. There was 15 or 20,000 pages, some crazy number of pages on this thing. So I just got to a point where it was like, all right, it's starting to look a little old anyway. It's feeling old anyway. It's time to strip it down, do a little more raw version, and bring back a new page. So beginning right around the first of the year, I'm not sure, probably it'll launch on the first of the year, I would think. We will be, and I'm going to put it on the screen so people can see the demo. It's not quite finished, but it's almost there. We'll have a newer, cleaner, slicker CMSPN website that will be up there. And it's, it's got the shows, it's got CMS TV, it's got the episodes, it's got the audio stuff, the radio stations, but it's all on one page now. Instead of having to go to 400 places to find everything. If you're whatever you're looking for, you could just find on one page. And then the other nice thing is I cleaned up the the individual pages for like people that come to the page daily to look at the stuff. So if I just go to one, here's like, this is the CMS page, and again, it has everything all in kind of one spot. But then if you want to watch something like an individual episode, you just click through, and there it is, nice and clean, quick, easy. Beautiful. Podcast on top, video right underneath it. Couple of this will have 3. A couple of episodes that you might have missed. Good to go. Quick, easy, slick, fast, and hopefully better. So,
for all those technologically challenged people that complain all the time, you guys are making it so hard. Hey, this is simple. This is a piece of cake.
This is a lot easier.
Yeah, if you can't do this, then I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? But this is very straightforward, man. Yeah, this looks great, Chris, man.
Thanks.
And I can't wait for everyone can just go check that out. Right now, CMSNetwork.com, CMSPN.com.
Yep.
Because it's up now, right? Yes. This is
the demo. This is the demo. I'll have it. I got to put more content in it right now. It only has like 25 articles. I got to have enough, because what's going to happen is when I switch, it's gonna on all the podcast sites is going to switch from whatever's up there now to whatever's in the new site. So I don't want to do it and have everybody like, oh, what happened to all these shows? I used to have 400 episodes. Now I have 3, so I got to kind of backfill it a little bit. And that's going to be what I do over the holiday break. But yeah, nice. It's coming soon, and hopefully it's easier to get your favorite shows like Aftershocks TV.
There you go. Sweet. Fantastic.
Look at us.
Well, Chris always kicking ass with the CMS Network, like you said, going on 4 years ago that you put together that original website. And just, you see a lot of podcasts and networks, whatever they're out there. They don't, a lot of times they don't last, man. But here we are 4 years in, still going strong. Like you said, we got some great shows. I love some of the additions that you put on the network recently. Scott Bowling's Good Company is a great show.
It is.
Everyone should check that out. Obviously, today's Boondoggle is great too. I mean, just every show is just, to me, a very high quality show.
Sure, and they're all different. That's the thing to me, is that they are all different.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yep, and everyone knows their shit, and that's the thing too. Everybody knows their stuff, whatever it is that they're talking about and whoever they're interviewing, whatever. It's a great, like I said, CMS Network, that's where it's at. Everyone check out the new website. Great. So, Chris, anything else going on? What we have here? You want to talk about CHRIS Akin Presents, CMS? Go for it.
Oh, CMS is CMS. there's not a whole lot to talk about there. It's you either get it or you don't. There's not a lot of wiggle room in there. There's not much selling to do on that one.
No, definitely not.
CHRIS Akin Presents has been an absolute happy surprise for me.
Awesome, man.
I mean, not that I didn't think it was going to be fun. I obviously did, or I wouldn't have wasted my time doing it. But it's been a lot of fun, and Eric is a fucking character, man.
Yeah, he is a character. Yeah. And I actually find that he's getting, obviously right now, he's found his groove, and he's happy, and he's all singing shit and dancing, and the cat comes in, and whatever the fuck is going on.
He's so different from anybody else that I've ever worked with ever. And I mean, even like with me and Matt, when me and Matt do it, we have some fun, but we're serious
music people.
We're serious. Yeah. We're asking serious musical questions and talking about serious musical stuff. With Neely, it's rarely about music, and it's mostly about chaos. It's about chaotic things, but neither of us are really the creator of the chaos. It's more like analyzing chaos. I never know what the hell is coming from Eric. I mean, some of his the Sugar Smack thing and Stoic Steve, Steve especially. I'll tell it. This is a funny story. I haven't even told this on CHRIS Akin Presents. I had no idea what was going on with that shit. Like, he doesn't tell me in advance, hey, I'm going to try a character out or anything. He pops into the room right at the time that we start the show, and he'll be wearing the Stoic Steve mask. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I don't know if you know this one, Matt. Tom, I'm pretty sure you do. Stoic Steve's gimmick is that he never shows emotion, and that he sits in when anybody needs a replacement for whatever they do. If they're a carpenter and they can't go to work today, they call Stoic Steve. If they're a drummer, they call Stoic Steve. So he just popped in the first time we were doing it as Stoic Steve. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what was going on. I'm trying to lead him into questions. I don't know what to ask him because I don't know that he's like emotionless, so I'm trying to ask him. I'm like, what do you think of this new guy in Metal Church? He's okay. I was like, dude, and he wouldn't come out of character. He stayed this way for like 25 fucking minutes to where I got uncomfortable, where I was like, I really don't know what to ask you now, Steve. But that, and when we were doing it, I ain't gonna lie, and Eric knows this, when we were doing it, I hated it. I was like, what the fuck is this gimmick bullshit that we're doing? Then I watched it back, and I was like, that is freaking hilarious. Yeah. Watching me be uncomfortable is pretty funny. Yeah. Funny.
That's true.
His part wasn't as funny as me just not knowing what to do. And I was like, all right. And I talked to him about it, and I said, I told him, I said, all right, I'm not a gimmick guy, but let's keep rolling with this, see what you got, and I'll play along as best we can. And the only thing I said to him is, I said, but not 20 minutes. Maybe like 5 or 10. Because 20 is a long time. That's a lot of people going, all right, I'm done with this shit. But it's fun. And Eric is a character, and the combination of him doing his silly stuff with some real world, what it's like today on the road stories.
Yeah.
Love that.
Every week he comes back with another story about another airline fiasco. And I'm stunned. I've told him this on the show. I've told him this off the show. I would have long quit the Stephen Piercy band just because of the hassles of travel. Yeah. But, and then he shows, gross shit that he finds in his room in the hotels and stuff. And it's like, holy shit, this is not the glamorous life.
I wonder, Chris, what would have hit, because I was listening to your top 10 today. So I won't give it away to too many people just in case they haven't listened. But I wonder what his would have been compared to yours. And just FYI, you said something about Ectomorph, and you said no one knows who they are. There they are by Apple Music, my friend.
Great new album.
There you go.
New album is great.
I did. New one is not there. That's Reborn. That's 21. I knew exactly who this band are.
I love them.
They're great band. I think are they Danish or
Hungarian?
I don't think.
Hungarian.
Right. I knew they were somewhere over there. I knew that. Great band.
But they're so good, and no one knows who they are. That's what's crazy.
No, they're a great band.
I learned them from Chris. Yeah, Chris, you said you've been listening. I remember you told me, like, if you really like freaking
Soulfly or Sepultura,
you got to check out Ectomorph. You've been bumping those guys for a while, and that new album, I just got the press release last week, and I'm like, whoa, this thing is in your face awesome. And brutal. Yeah, it's great.
But I want to hear Eric's top 10. I'm interested because I don't know a whole lot of his musical tastes. I don't know why he doesn't really go there sometimes.
No, I'm going to tell you why there was not. And I did ask Eric if he wanted to be involved. And he didn't, because he doesn't have time to listen to 10 albums in a year. He just doesn't like, and he says it on the show, and I find it funny. I know the bands don't love it sometimes, but we'll play like a minute of a song into an interview, and Eric will say something to the band like, I just heard that what we were just playing, that was really good. I'm like, holy shit.
Well, I want to see, Chris, I want to see Stoic Steve and you interview, because I just saw a press release about a week or so ago, the War Kings.
Oh, that would be so good.
That would be great, man.
That would be so good.
You should set that. Tom, have you ever seen the War Kings interview for Aftershocks that Chris did years ago? Oh man.
So
I gotta write that down.
You do need to watch this one. You need to find that one. So the War Kings are basically Bad Guar.
Yeah.
They do the costumes, and it's like a half head skull
King stuff,
with a big beard and this whole thing, right? So they asked me to do the interview, but they wanted to do it in character.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, fine with me. So I took it way too far, though. I wouldn't come out of character.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of, he comes in thinking that it was going to be in character. Every question I asked him was about Viking bullshit. I mean, it was all like, do you watch Vikings and think it's home movies? Tell me more about Ragnar. I was asking any Viking question I could think of. And this guy was finally, I asked him if he had to slaughter women before he wrote music. And I mean, just ridiculous questions. Mm-hmm. And he tried to come out of it with like some regular music talk, but I wouldn't go there.
You wouldn't let him.
I wouldn't let him. He tried to come out. Yeah, we get together and we mix the bass and the drums. I'm like, yeah, you mix it so that you can pray to the gods for more food, right? I just would not let it go, and it's one of the funniest fucking things.
I gotta check that out.
Look, just a picture. I remember when you put that up on social media of you and that guy. I mean, the guy just looks ridiculous. So it's just you have to just see it. Yeah, Tom, you gotta check it out. It's definitely a classic one. So yeah, Stoic Steve interviewing and you interviewing one of the War Kings. That same guy would be, I think, quite
that would be
entertaining, right?
I want to see that, but Matt, we should do that for Aftershocks. We should bring our top 10 just for.
Well, I already have. I definitely have that in the pipeline. Yes, we will do that. Okay. Absolutely, Ben. Yeah, cool. Absolutely.
Why do I think Matt's will be the same as mine?
There'll be. I know it'll be probably right on top.
You did say that, Chris. You said that. You said it's going to be probably the same.
No, Prong's going to be right up there, so of course that'll be there.
Yeah, well, I don't care if we say who's on the list.
Exactly.
All right. It's been out. It's been out for. By the time this airs, it'll have been out for 2 or 3 weeks. So who cares? If they haven't watched it, tough shit. Yeah, mine was Prong.
Yeah, that's when I write the.
Mine was State of Emergency, which is a great record.
Great record, man. Yeah.
Almost Metal Church. I heard you say that. It was like
Dude, I go back and forth between those two. I mean that song that what is it, Feed the God and Pray or whatever it is, the one that they had the single for. Yeah. That song is awesome. That is one of that might be my favorite tune of the year. And I mean I play that Metal Church record constantly, and I play the Prong record constantly. Mm-hmm. What's funny is I had Tommy Victor on CHRIS Akin Presents. I had Tommy Victor on CHRIS Akin Presents. And I asked him specifically, I said, you had to know that you were onto something really good with this record, right?
Not him,
and he goes,
no,
I don't know that now. And I was like, what?
He's a very cynical individual, Mr. Victor. As we know. He doesn't understand how good his.
He doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't. I did the same thing with him too. He was saying, if anyone really cares about this record, I'm like, dude, there's a ton of people that fucking care, man. Stop this shit. But he's just that guy that because he was, listen, Prong was one of the new metal, Korn, all those bands wouldn't have never happened if it wasn't for Prong. That's right. And they'll tell you that. Those bands will tell you that they were usually influenced. He's just never gotten the credit for it. So what I'm glad is he's finally getting out there going like, you know what? Yeah, I was pretty damn influential. And he's saying that, yes, bands like Fear Factory and all these bands ripped, basically they ripped off Prong. They borrowed a lot from them. And yes, he deserves a lot more credit than he gets because they're a very, original band. And they carried, like we were talking about last night, Tom, what he's Prong and, Sepultura, Pantera. Those are the bands that carried metal in the 90s, the groove stuff. I mean, those are the bands,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but, when metal was in the shitter, these bands were still, even with I saw Korn and Rob Zombie just a couple of years ago, and they're still paying $15,000 a night from that legacy they built from then. Exactly. But just a quick on Metal Church, Chris, I know that was your number 2, almost your number 1, but for obviously what happened to Mike Howe a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago, whatever, for them to come back that strong, that quickly, because obviously he committed suicide. You don't leave. Nobody knows this shit's going to happen. Whatever, but Bob being sick, this is just boom. Everybody hears, and I do not. I'm the guy. I do not get backstage. I don't know anyone to get me backstage. I got back the odd time, and I met Mike Howe in New Jersey. He's on a tour with. If I can remember, there was Amon Amarth, there was Butcher Babies, there was Megadeth. Suicidal.
Suicide Silence.
No, it's Tennessee. I met Mike here too, and Dave Lombardo. So that was pretty cool. But I met Mike backstage with Richie, And I just walked in. He didn't know us from Adam. He jumped about of his seat, all full of energy. Guys, you want a beer? And I said, yeah, God, fuck yeah. And we're sitting down. So who are you? Why are you here? Who do you know? And I had 10 minutes with him, and he was a perfect gentleman. And then he said, okay, guys, got to go sound check or whatever they were on or something. And he went. And then, you know, so I have that photograph of kind of arm around, big stupid,
awesome.
you know, thumb up, whatever. But for Metal Church to come back with that album, you know, within 3 years is just perfection.
Yeah, 2 words for you. One name, Mark Lopez. That's right, Lopes.
Yeah, Lopes. Don't say it wrong.
I almost said the one that when I interviewed him. I know. Yeah, Mark Lopes. I mean, he is a phenomenal. Even listen to that guy. He has a band called Let Us Pray. All right, listen to that. It's more extreme. Like, you know, it's not classic metal stuff. It's more extreme metal. That guy can go all over the place vocally. He's amazing. I mean, me and Chris have talked about him. Obviously, he's a vocalist of Ross the Boss too. So he's that's I think one of the reasons too why, you know, they've come back so strong is because yes, it's hard to replace Howe, and you got a great vocalist in Mark Lopes. Yeah.
And they were on a great trajectory with those last albums before the new one. So they were going play even that best album they released a couple of years ago. I think they had 4 new tracks on that. They were incredible tracks. So I was looking forward to the next one, but c'est la vie.
I wonder how much of this record might have already been written.
True.
Sure.
I mean, because they were hammering. They were really strong for.
Yeah.
To me, they've always been strong. Maybe I'm stupid here, but I love the Ronnie Monroe stuff as well. I love all of it.
I like it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. All right, well, gentlemen, we're getting ready to wrap this up. So Chris, man, it's great, obviously, seeing you, man. Like I said, it's been a while, so great, you know, having you back on Aftershocks after a long, long time. Obviously, Tom, so great that you're part of this now as well, man.
Yes, sir.
And so I hope everyone had a good Christmas, good New Year's, everyone out there. And we're out.
See ya.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
All right.